Okay. So what do you see here? Let me just resize this a little bit. So what you see here is VS Code. Hopefully that's familiar to most of you, excuse me. And what we're going to do is very quickly just load up our open source product, which is called Parlant. I installed it with pip. I'm going to start the server, show you a little something, and then you can gain a sense of whether this is interesting for you or not. Oh, you know what? Let me share my entire screen. Apologize. Okay. So I started. Second. I started my Parlant server. I'm going to load up Safari. Oh, this has not happened before, and of course it happens now. Never seen this.
It's the demo guy.
Yeah, man. I've heard the stories. This is the.
It's a real demo. This is what happens. Otherwise, we don't know it's real.
Oh, I think actually. Let me try this. Oh, you know what? They updated VS Code recently with like these new abilities, and I think like it looks like something's got messed up a little bit. Why why does local tunnel port need me to sign into GitHub? Let me let me quickly do this. Sorry. 1 second.
Yeah, please take your time. We have enough time. We have 45 minutes, so take your time.
Yeah. Oh. All right, let me share my screen again. This was probably the most interesting part of the presentation, you know, the technical issues. Righty. So let me start Parlant.
Tell us what you're doing, Yam.
So I'm going to start the Parlant server, which is a conversational AI server. Okay. Wait a second. Let me do something else. Apologize. So Parlant is a conversational AI server, which means that you create AI agents, AI chatbots that talk to users in a conversation, right? Conversation mode. And what Parlant allows you to do is control exactly how they're going to talk to your customers. So it's a client server type of thing. So there's a server, you install agents on it, then you talk to them. I just want to show you that very, very quickly. This is what you get. This is Parlant's integrated user interface. It's basically a playground, so you can use this to test your agents' interactions and behavior. I'll just do a very, very quick example. I'll say, let's do good evening, see what comes back. So we can see just a bunch of quick things here. If you notice, there was like an indication of the agent is online, agent is typing, so you get some responsivity in managing the conversation. And we get some response back, okay? So this is, what you can imagine here is I've created a conversational chatbot, and it's got no instruction at this point. And now what I want to do is I want to treat the agent kind of like a sculpture, like sculpting something. So I started with some default behavior. In this case, I'm running on top of GPT-4o, and now I'm gonna want to start, basically changing how it interacts with me according to my preferences. So let me load up our website for a second. And what I want to do, this is our website, by the way. There's a video intro. And what I want to do is I want to give you like an interactive tour through the tutorial. So this tutorial touches on most of the features in Parlant. At least gives you a taste of them. Parlant is kind of deep, but this will give you a taste of what it's about and what you can do with it. So what we'll create here in this workshop is an agent that's connected to like a tech retail store and offers you service, basically. Okay. So
feel free to share the links, what you're sharing in the chat for everyone, if you want people to try it.
yeah, and you can try it later. I can kind of walk you through this, and then you can do the same thing. Let me open up the chat. Oh, Asif, so I can see the global Q&A, but where is it? No, I lost it. Sorry. Maybe you can take over that part because my Zoom bar thing doesn't show me the Q&A anymore.
Okay.
But basically, it's parlant.io. It's the tutorial. What we're going to do here is I'm going to walk you through the tutorial, kind of give you a more in-depth look at a bunch of stuff here, give you a little bit of the history of why we did things a certain way. So it'll be more interesting in that way, and then at the end you can ask me questions. So let's just get started. So I've already created this project, the Parlant tutorial. So now what I want to do is I want to create a tech retail store agent. I always like funny names, so I'm going to call him Chip Bittman. And the way Parlant works is you modify Parlant's configuration using a command line interface. So you open up the terminal, you start inputting commands, and it changes what's happening behind the scenes. Parlant can a single Parlant server can host many different AI agents with different configurations. So for this, we'll just create a new one. I'll do agent create, and let's give it a name, Chip Bittman. Oh, sorry about that. That's just my VS Code configuration again. I think the new version wants me to use my virtual environment like this. Yeah, okay. Because this one now is using an older version. So now I've created my agent, Chip Bittman, and so let me save the agent ID for a second because we're going to do stuff with it once we start configuring it. And now I guess the first thing I can do is I can go back here and oh, it happened twice. And we got the one called this one. This one's from the old command that it ran before. So now you can see how to delete an agent. Which are on Parlant. Right. So now if I go back to the playground and I create a new session, I can choose my new agent. So let's just do, hey, what's your name? Just something very basic, just to do a quick sanity test. All right, won't worry about this for a second. Sorry about this. New version released. Let's just go ahead with it. So let's do this. Let's give this Chip agent a basic personality. Teach it what it's about. So we're going to say you work at a tech store, and you help customers choose what to buy. So the way I can do this, I'll just copy this description over here to my terminal. Man, I've never had so many technical issues. excuse me, copy, paste, right? And now I'm gonna update my my agent with this new description. Again, that's too bad they updated the version just like a couple of days ago. Okay, so now my agent has this new description. I can continuously, change this description. There's a bunch of extra parameters here for each agent, which I can get into a little bit later. They're actually very interesting. But let's go back here. I'll start a new conversation with Chip, and I'll say, hey there, what can you help me with? And we'll just see, like I said, that it's basically understanding who it is and what its job is. Right. Okay. So, if you've done a lot of prompt engineering, then you're used to this. You can give an agent its basic kind of role description and all that, and it works. So this is actually only our starting point when we create agents in Parlant. Now what we want to start doing is guiding its behavior in specific situations. And if you saw my presentation from before, you know that if you were to go about this issue of how do I guide the agent's behavior in different situations, if you were to throw all of that in a single prompt, or just throw a lot of information in a single prompt, you're going to get very inconsistent behavior. And what we're trying to solve here is that inconsistency. We're trying to get it to consistently do what you want it to do. So let's get into that. Now, if you think, like, over time when you develop a conversational agent, you want it to obviously understand your business domain, right? So that means obviously tool integrations and stuff like that. But one thing that a lot of people miss, which actually some big companies talk to us about these issues, is that the agents they don't really understand and interpret correctly the business terminology, right? So every business, every company, product, or whatever, one sometimes has their own terms, and sometimes they can assign different meanings to the same terms. And so one thing that people asked us to do pretty early on was to add support for an agent's glossary, like to tell it in your use case when you're talking to people, this is what this term means, and you should know about it. Now that allows you to do two things with Parlant. One is it allows obviously your agent to understand your customers, but two, just as importantly, it allows you to give it instructions in your domain language, and that's what the glossary is about. So here, what I want to do is just give you a taste of the glossary. What we'll do is we will add two glossary terms for the agent to understand. One will be the name of the store, and the other one will be the warranty plan that the store offers, that the tech store offers. And we'll do the name of the store will be bug, and the name of the warranty plan will be bug free. So that when people say bug free or they talk about the warranty, the agent is able to make those connections. Now, in Parlant, like I said before, the server can host many different agents, and we have some people using Parlant to create like thousands of agents for various reasons. So after a while, what you get is you have a bunch of guidelines, glossary terms, and extra things that I'll show you in a few minutes. But you actually want to share and reuse a lot of those between different agents. And the way you do that is instead of just configuring that agent, you can configure basically like groups of things, groups of configurations, and then share those across agents. In this case, what I'll use for this workshop, I use the group called retail, and I'll start associating behavior with my agent, with Chip, using this retail tag. So a tag in Parlant is something that just helps us associate between one type of entity in the system and another. So if they share a tag, then they have some association between them, which I'll show you. So we'll start off by creating this tag called retail. Yeah, you need to get used to. Actually, let me fix this quickly. I don't know if you guys know aliases in the shell. So I'll do Parlant will be So if we run Parlant, I won't get this issue anymore. There we go. Okay, so now we have this tag, and now I'm gonna start adding a bunch of extra configuration under this tag, or tag with retail. So I want all of this configuration to be associated with my agent, which means that I'll need to tag my agent with retail. So let me go ahead and do that. And now my agent is tagged. So anytime I add an element of the conversational model under the tag retail, my agent automatically gets it. And now let's go ahead and create the terms. So like I said, the first term would be the name of our store, which would be bug. Actually, let me break this apart. So we'll start by setting this description here. And now what we're going to do is Parlant glossary create, which creates a new term. The term name will be bug. We'll give this description up here, and we'll give it a few synonyms. And the synonyms are useful because, and this is what I mean about the happy path. Sometimes a customer comes to you, wants to talk to you about your product, your business, or whatever, but they're actually going to use their terms. And over time, you can kind of pick up on, these are the terms that customers use when they talk about our product, or especially if it's their first few times. So you can kind of flow with their language instead of just saying, I don't understand what you're talking about. So this is why the synonyms are important. Let me go ahead and create this term. Great. And now let's do the same for the warranty plan, which is, you already know how this works. I'll just copy everything. Right, now, if I list the glossary terms right now, then first I can list them using the CLI. I can edit them, update, add more, delete. The CLI is, supports the full CRUD thing, create, read, update, delete. So I can see my terms. I can see that everything was installed correctly. And now what I can do, as the tutorial recommends, I'll go back to Parlant, create a new conversation, and let's just start with good evening again. I want to see what it does. By the way, I apologize for the latency. It's I don't know if some of you noticed, but in the past few weeks since OpenAI released their new image generation, the latency, they went down from like 120 tokens per second to like 40 in our test. So okay, so we can see that the agent does respond. It understands. By the way, I'll show you what's in here in a second. It's actually really cool. But we can see that it understands the name of the store, what it's about, and now I can ask, do you provide a warranty? And we'll just test that it understands the terms. Okay, so it understands it. It references the bug-free warranty plan, and cool. Let's move forward. Now we're going to talk about guidelines. Now, guidelines, it's a simple idea. Like I said in my presentation, guidelines, they have two things, a condition and an action. A condition specifies, so an action is what to do, and a condition is when to do it. And like I said before, the reason why this is really, really important is because, see, if you're only creating a demo agent, you're just kind of demonstrating some basic abilities, which we've all done like a couple years back by now. It's good for the demo, but we know it's hard to scale it, right? It's hard to give it more and more instructions. It becomes more and more inconsistent. It's not a good product. Now the challenge is, how do you get it to be consistent with not just like 10 instructions, but let's just say 300 instructions? There's no way you're going to fit all of that in a single prompt, not even like 10 prompts. If you're building like a language graph or something like that with different system prompts, even 10 system prompts, 10 different nodes in your graph are not going to be able to hold 300 instructions and enforce them consistently. So what we want to do is, and this is what Parlant does, you install your guidelines, which you do iteratively every time you see the agent doing something that's not quite what you expected, so you need to guide it. That's when you add a guideline. But once you've added like a few dozen, or it can be quite a lot, like I said, then what Parlant does is it's going to look at every conversation, and not just every conversation, but every time it's about to respond, it's going to go and filter out all of the irrelevant guidelines. So if you have 300, you would often stay with like 5, right? Because your agent, if you have 300, probably supports many different use cases. Now, at this point, at any single point in any conversation, you're probably not going to have more than like a few actually active. Now, LLMs are not bad at handling like 3 instructions, maybe 4 instructions, but using some tricks behind the scenes, we actually got them to do fairly well with up to 10 instructions. But the biggest power here is that Parlant just, like I said, filters out all of the irrelevant instructions that you gave it for different contexts. Okay, long story short, guideline has a condition, has an action. In this case, what I want Chip to do, right. So right now it's saying, when I just say good evening, it's saying welcome to Bug, some witty comment, whatever. How can I assist you tonight? And actually, you know what? I'm not a big fan of these witty comments. Let me try to see if I can get it to stop doing that. So let me go ahead and install this guideline. Actually, I don't even need to copy it. I just want to do it freely. So let me do this. Parlant guideline create. Now remember that I tagged my agent with the retail tag. So I'll do the same for the guideline so that it applies to my agent. And then I'll say the condition is the customer has just greeted you. And now I want the following action to apply. I want to say just greet them back briefly and ask how you can help. So before I apply this, I just want to take a note of something here. We say often that the best way to develop a conversational agent is not by kind of imagining the conversational paths ahead of time. It's a little bit hard to really get a sense of how that would feel to a user. It's really, really better if you can just converse with it, chat with it, feel out its responses and whether they're right or wrong. And then when you have that, actually like your immediate emotional feedback, you know if something is not quite right. Just like I didn't really like the witty comment here, and you can do something about it. And maybe you like the witty comment. That's the thing, right? Maybe you like it and I don't, so we can both input different guidelines. So let me go ahead and install this guideline, and check out this cool feature here. So I can start a new conversation, but instead what I'll do is I'll select this message. And again, like with the logs here, I'll show you a bunch of cool stuff about them in a second. But what I can do is I can regenerate this message, and Parlant will warn me because the conversations went on since then that I would lose the rest of the conversation, which is fine. But then I can regenerate it after I install the new guideline and test what the effect is. Let's give it a few seconds. Great. Okay, we got rid of the witty comment. On to the next things. Now, sorry for being a little bit obsessive about this, but again, to remind you, now what we expect is once the agent has greeted the user, we expect that guideline to not appear, to not like bias and kind of disperse the LLM's attention in future messages, because it just doesn't apply anymore. So we can go on to adding more behaviors. Okay. I'm actually going to skip this one. It's not super important for here. Let me touch on a cool aspect of Parlant. So, like I said before, what we're trying to do is we're trying to allow people to create more engagement with users to provide better service using their, Gen AI. And sometimes it's a brand thing, and by that I mean, this is how our brand does things. These are our guidelines, these are our glossary terms, these are our protocols, etc. But many times you actually want to treat different customers or groups of customers a little bit differently for various reasons. It could be due to a different locale, like maybe they're from another country where interaction rules are a little bit different, right? I'm actually in Poland right now. I don't know if we have anyone from Poland in the audience, but in compared to America, people here are kind of a little bit more reserved. It's kind of like a colder place. So if you get like too conspicuous, it might not work so well. You might lose the customer. So so let me go ahead and show you how we customize the conversation differently for different customers. The first thing we need to do here is we need to give Parlant the awareness that there are different types of customers. Even for a second. And for that reason alone, Parlant allows you to register your customers on it. Like, you're not supposed to add any private information about your customers, but just enough so that Parlant knows this is a different type of customer, and you can apply different guidelines to how to treat them. So again, it's just me. I like silly names. So we're going to create a customer called Beef Wellington, which some of you may know is a type of dish, but it just sounds like a name to me. So we're going to go ahead and register this customer. Great. I'll save its ID as the tutorial recommends, because I'm going to do a bunch of stuff with it in a second. So the first thing we can do here is just to get a sense of how Parlant identifies customers. We can create a guideline that tells our agent that when a customer greets you, then welcome them back by mentioning their name, kind of give it a more personal touch. So let me go ahead and do that. And if I go back to the playground, I'll start a new session. And once again, I'll choose Chip as my agent. But now I get to choose a customer because because I've registered at least one customer. So I'll choose Biff, and I'll say good evening. And we'll see if this works. But I want to show you something just as cool here. Great. So we actually see that both of our guidelines applied at this point. One is there's no kind of witty comment, and also it's greeting us back by name. Now at this point, what I want to show you is a peek inside how Parlant deals with your guidelines, both to enforce them as well as like to filter them. But kind of like a byproduct of how we do it is that it gives you a lot of insight into how the underlying LLM interpreted your guidelines, how it interpreted the conversation and everything. So if I click on this message, I can see a bunch of logs. Parlant has a few main components to it. One is guideline matcher, the second is the tool caller, and the third is the message event composer. Parlant is very modular, right? Because it deals with a lot of complexity, so we had to kind of pull things in different components. I'll give you like just a few seconds explanation on what each of these do. So what guideline matcher does is it filters out the irrelevant guidelines, or put differently, it chooses the matching guidelines for the next response. Tool caller, as the name suggests, if you need to run tools, it'll do that, and it actually does it differently than most other frameworks. I'll explain why in a few minutes. And finally, the message event composer looks at all of the information, be they selected guidelines, matching glossary terms, etc. It takes all of that and tries to tailor a message that actually follows all of the instructions that it sees. So let me start with the guideline matcher and filter the logs for it. And so I'll make this a little bit more efficient so you don't have to scroll a lot, because there's a lot of information here. I'll look for completions, which will show me LLM completions. Now I see here a bunch of messages. I can see that there's one activation, we'll look into it in a second, and another activation. Right, so if I look at the first activation, I can expand this. And this is the output of the guideline matcher showing me its tests of guidelines at this particular point in conversation. So right now it's looking at a customer greets you, welcome them back, mentioning their name. And we can see it's asking, does the condition apply? And it gives you an explanation. I'll touch in a second on why there's so much content here. But the explanation is the customer initiated the interaction with a greeting saying good evening. And then the next thing it needs to check is, okay, so the condition applies, but have we already performed this action? Because if we did, then a lot of times there's no reason to just go ahead and try to enforce doing it again and again and again in a kind of like a neurotic way. So we also look at the action. We ask, was the action previously applied? We can see that the agent has not yet welcomed the customer back or mentioned their name. So we need to do that now. Therefore, the applied score is 8. So what you're seeing here, some of you may have encountered this because it was like on Google News and stuff. But this is a result. This whole output here is a result of a prompting technique that our research team found. We call it attentive reasoning queries. First of all, like we saw that it gives you the same improvement over a chain of thought. The chain of thought gives you over no reasoning, which is saying a lot. And the way that it works, and the reason why it works better, we use structured output, so we're outputting JSON. And because we can control the schema, then right before we ask the model to reason about something, we can ask leading questions. We call these questions attentive reasoning queries for the reason that in our test, it's like so I'm not going to go into like key value query and how LLMs work, but just kind of loosely speaking, what it tends to do is if you have some instructions in your prompt, such as your guidelines, let's say, then it pulls them into the end of your context window. So the end of your context window is the last tokens that the LLM sees. The reason why that's important is because the way LLMs are trained, there's a lot more weight to what's right at the end of the context. And part of that is because they're trained on conversations where what's at the end has more weight than it's unlike just like a document, you know. So once we pull that information into the end of the context using the output schema, now the attention is much better and we can ask it to reason and the results will be better. So like I said, we use it for enforcement, but the byproduct is that you can look at these outputs and gain a lot of insight into, you know, so a lot of times we think the LLM didn't do what we wanted to do, and many times it doesn't, but many times it turns out that we didn't really explain ourselves properly. And we've seen this so many times using these attentive reasoning queries and looking at them. So it really helps. Anyway, so we can see that this guideline got activated and the other one got activated for its own reasons. And finally, let me open up a new log tab here for a message composition. Let's look at the message event composer. I just want to show you the outputs there as well. So what Parlant is trying to do, and in this case so far I've only showed you 2 simple guidelines about greeting the customer. But what it's trying to do is to really ensure that if you gave it guidelines, then you didn't just waste your time. So we really, you know, if you give Parlant guidelines, we really try to make sure that Parlant follows them. And we do that with a lot of context evaluations and what we call like these ARQs, attentive reasoning queries, reinstating the guidelines at the right, like at strategic points in the completion. Finally, once we've kind of asked all the right questions about our context, now we get on to generating the message, and we use revisions here. So sometimes the LLM will generate a message, but kind of like chain of verification, it can then ask some questions about it and realize I actually didn't get it right, and then we get it to try again. And it does all of this in the same request, so you don't pay for the input tokens twice. Most of the time with Parlant, our at this point our components work pretty well, so they get messages right within one revision. But what you can see here is that it proposed this content, which you saw on the screen before. Good evening, Beef Wellington. How can I assist you today? And then we get a recap of the information provided to bias the model not to hallucinate services that nobody taught it. We can ask what instructions were followed. Were some instructions broken? So it has to kind of give its justification if it broke any instructions. If it broke instructions for wrong reasons, so for invalid reasons, it will go ahead and try another revision. But sometimes it needs to break its instructions if, for example, there's a conflict between two instructions. Very quick example of why we do this prioritization between instructions when we generate the messages. There's a funny story about this, and you won't find the story anywhere, only in this workshop. So we were testing the engine back in the day when we just got started, and we got to a point where we could really enforce its behavior with guidelines. And then we realized it's both a blessing and a curse because we gave it two guidelines in our test. One was when the customer, it was a pizza salesman, selling agent. So we said when a customer wants Coca-Cola, Coke, then offer them a Pepsi instead. And that worked, right? But then we said, what if somebody really doesn't like Pepsi, which I never understood. Like I love Pepsi. But some people, they get really emotional about Pepsi. So we said, if a customer is getting upset, then tell them that you'll escalate the issue to a manager, okay? To just kind of, be nice and apologetic. So we gave those two guidelines. They want Coke, give them a Pepsi, offer a Pepsi. And if they're upset, tell them that you'll transfer them to a manager immediately. And then what we saw happen, because our enforcement was so good, was that a customer came in, said, hey, can I get a Coke? And the agent says, no, but I can offer you a Pepsi instead. And then the customer said, what, a Pepsi sucks, basically customer was upset about it. And then the agent said, so I'm really sorry about this inconvenience. Let me transfer you to a manager immediately. In the meantime, can I offer you a refreshing Pepsi? Which it was only trying to enforce the rules, but it came across as very kind of rude, like as if it's trying to provoke the customer. And that's why we, over time we added all of these different mechanisms that we to address all of the issues we found in enforcement. Like I said, like even though our enforcement was good, we had to to deal with that. So anyway, there's a bunch of insights that you can gain from these logs to understand why something happened. Now we discussed this. So we said, okay, welcome the customer back, mentioning their name. And now what I want to do is I want to start really customizing the behavior for a specific type of customer. The way we can do that is there's a few sides to it. In this case, for this demo, what I want to do is if a customer is on a different subscription plan, let's say they have a business subscription with the store, so maybe they get discounts or whatever. I'll want the agent to know about that. So I want to inject custom data about the customer. And the way we do that in Parlant is with variables. It's basically the solution we have to this problem of injecting data about a specific customer. Now with variables, you can inject many types of dynamic data, such as, for example, the current time, the current date. But you can also do it, you can also specialize the values of these variables for specific customers. So whereas a date would be global, or who knows, maybe if customers are on a different time zone, then you can set different values for different customers. But if it's a subscription plan, then obviously you need a different value per customer. But in any case, we'll start out by creating this variable called subscription plan. And once again, I'll tag it with retail so that my agent knows about it. So let me save the variable ID. Okay. And now what I'll do is I'll create the tag business because I wanna have some like a special value for any customer who's on the business plan. So let's create the tag business. Got it. And I'll take my customer, the one I just created, the Beef Wellington, and I'll tag this customer with the business tag. Great. So now Beef Wellington is tagged with business. I might be able to see this. Yeah. Okay. So there's Beef Wellington, and this is the tag we just created for business. We can see that beef is tagged. Great. And now what I want to do is I want to take my variable, take my subscription plan variable, and so set the value business plan for any customer who is tagged with business. This is the syntax. And again, everything is documented on the website. Great. So now any customer tagged with the business tag, automatically, when they're conversing with the agent sees the value of this variable as business plan. Now that we have this, we can actually create different guidelines for business plan customers. The way the tutorial goes is it says, if a business plan customer is having an issue, then assure them you will escalate it internally and get back to them, which is just like VIP service, right? So let me go ahead and do that. And then, great. So now let's go back to the UI, and I could just continue the conversation. So, you know, last time we looked at this, it said, how can I assist you? And here I want to say, I'm having a problem with my new laptop. Like I said, we'll give it a few seconds. And we can see the behavior being implemented. So let's see what it's saying. I'm sorry to hear you're having a trouble with your new laptop. Beef, as a business plan customer, I'll make sure to escalate this issue internally and get back to you with a solution as soon as possible. Great. And the other thing you can see is, could you please provide me more details about the problem you're experiencing? Now, the reason this is important, why I'm highlighting this, is that you're still, you know, you're still using an LLM. It's still adaptive, right? It's still trying to have a natural conversation. It's just also implementing the guidelines, the nudges that you specified for it. So you don't have to specify everything. You only nudge it in certain directions where you see that you really need to. And you can always do that. And that's a nice thing about Parlant. You know, you could be running an agent in production and somebody comes to you, you know, a business expert comes to you and says, hey, you know, in this case, I've noticed in a few places the agent responds like this. Can you change that? And instead of having to, you know, go and deal with spaghetti prompts, you just go to your Parlant CLI, you install the guidelines based on the feedback that was given to you, and Parlant will take care of it for you. Parlant will enforce it at the right time. So let's see where we are with the tutorial. So if you actually do the tutorial, then you'll also see stuff about connecting Parlant to tools. I won't demonstrate this right now because this will be, you know, writing code. But I do want to talk to you about the things that Parlant does differently with tools. Before I do that, though, James or Asif, can you please tell me how much time I have left? Because I also want to leave some time for Q&A.
I think it's 12:30, so I think it's time for Q&A, but you can take a couple of minutes more if you want.
Okay, good to know. So So basically, what I want to say about tools in Parlant, most frameworks you try to use today, including stuff like MCP, they basically add tools to your context so that the agent can, or more correctly said, the LLM can just decide, oh, maybe I'll run this tool now. But it's very, very inconsistent. And when you talk about customer-facing agents, the key word is consistency and predictability, which is why in Parlant, if you want to run a tool, you can't just always, just like guidelines, it's not always in context. The LLM doesn't always seize it because that creates a bunch of problems. So instead, the only times when your agent is allowed to run a tool is if you associate the tool with a guideline. For example, if you have a guideline that has the condition the customer wants to send money to somebody, let's say it's a bank agent, and the action would be help them carry out the transaction, you can associate a bunch of interesting tools with that specific guideline. So tools would be transfer money, tools would be maybe get known recipient list, get account balance, stuff like that. But you associate tools with guidelines so that only when those guidelines they match, when they become activated in the conversation, only then does Parlant actually evaluate those tools and figures out whether it needs to use them. And not only that, not only does it only evaluate them in context, but it uses the guidelines content to understand how to apply those tools, right? So instead of just relying on the LLM to say, yeah, I guess I could use that, the guideline can actually say, do this right now, and it can even say, run this tool to achieve this. And that creates a lot of consistency. So, Parlant is a beast, to be honest with you. There's so much stuff in there, and I've really only kind of touched the tip of the iceberg here. There's a lot of stuff documented, so you're welcome to take a look at it. You're also welcome to add me on LinkedIn. You're welcome, obviously, to look at the code if you guys are coders. It's all open source. We put a lot of effort into keeping the code clean. So with that said, I'm happy to take questions. Let me stop sharing my screen here.
All right.
And I do apologize for all the technical difficulties in the beginning.
So let's take the questions. His Q&A is on the bottom.
Right. Let me see. I'll try to take the ones that are more to do with conversational agents. If there's a link to the demo for us to follow, yeah, you can go on parlant.io and you can go through the tutorial. Like to build AI-driven secure DevOps assistant. So if you want to help your dev team achieve some objectives, I would argue, honestly, especially if you're dealing with developers, the cost of a mistake is not that great. It's not like dealing with your customers. Parlant does a lot of work behind the scenes. Kind of jumps through hoops to guarantee consistency. And you don't that'd be overkill for you. So if you're working on an internal use case, you can use Parlant. I'm not going to tell you don't, but it's there's a lot of solutions out there that probably do a good enough job. Not sure. This is a question. Can Parlant be used to build deeper and branched conversation flows for voice bots, where there can be different states and nodes, intelligently navigating across API calls, knowledge bases, all at low latency? Okay. And low cost. So the answer is yes and no. Yes, Parlant is, I'm the CEO and the tech lead, so obviously I'm biased, but in my opinion, there's nothing like it on the market today, at least in terms of the power it gives you over the shaping the conversation and getting it to consistently behave as you expect. However, that all does come at a cost. So unless you're using, I was gonna run this workshop on Cerebrus, but then I ran into technical difficulties, of course. But on Cerebras, which is they basically build their own hardware, and Parlant runs really really fast on Cerebras. This demo was an OpenAI where you saw it took like 10 seconds to get a response. So know that the latency with most current hardware is higher than, I mean, honestly, I don't think any LLM based agent that does any type of verification on its output fit to be served to customers. Is like none of them are going to give you that low latency. It's not like the old bots. So the simple question is no, it's not going to be low latency and low cost. The more complex answer would be that, you know, ask yourself if that's really, really required for your use case. Do your users really need that 500 millisecond latency? If not, then you can develop a reliable customer-facing chatbot right now. If they need that lower latency, you're probably best off not using Gen AI for the time being, or maybe building something which will take time, but for you to deploy maybe in a year or so, I don't know, when hardware catches up. Can we connect local models like LLMware to Parlant? Absolutely, yes. Parlant has an internal abstraction for LLMs, which is very, very minimalistic. All it needs is a model that, you know, you give it input and it generates output. It does need to be a capable model that can produce valid JSON schemas. But we've tested it on a bunch of different models. You know, some have their strengths and weaknesses, but most of them work pretty well. Do you have other interfaces except for the CLI to configure the agents? We are working on a graphical user interface. That's actually going to be our commercial product. It should be released soon, but it's not open source. That's the one part that's not open source. The whole engine of Parlant, all of the deep tech stuff of it is all open source. But when it comes to convenience, then that's where we kind of try to put bread on the table. That's what we're trying to sell. Does Parlant integrate well with LangGraph or tracing tools? So if you build like a RAG tool or something to fetch information from some index database using LangGraph, then yes, you can freely use LangGraph when you build Parlant tools. Regarding tracing tools, we currently don't support it as a built-in feature, but it is open source. And as soon as somebody cares about it, it can be integrated very, very easily. Those tools are generally very easy to integrate. Can I use Parlant with German language? Absolutely, yes. We've tested it on languages you may have not heard of. Again, like LLMs, most LLMs, they don't do necessarily as well with some languages compared to English, but I think German would be pretty good. Can we integrate this with existing frameworks like Langflow, or just follow the guidance that can be implemented across the LLMs? Okay, so if I understand the question, if you've built a customer-facing agent with Langflow, first of all, that is a good solution for many use cases, especially if either like you have a very simple conversational agent that doesn't need to handle complex scenarios where people ask, like they kind of jump between topics in unexpected ways, or at least ways that we as engineers didn't expect but are very natural. Then for those scenarios, you can use flowchart based models like Langflow. Otherwise, I wouldn't try to integrate it. I would try to rebuild it with Parlant. That's my opinion. Can the conditions be used in a complex form if a customer greets you and is from location X? Yes, they can. The condition can be compound. That's the word we use for it. And the actions can also be compound. And Parlant tends to do pretty well with that. How much time we have? Like 1 minute?
Yeah, 1 minute.
Okay, so if anybody has any other questions, you can contact me both on LinkedIn, and you can go on the Parlant website, and there's an enterprise link at the top if you have an enterprise use case our team can get back to you. Otherwise, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn and ask your questions. I'm always happy to talk to people. And thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Yam. Really, I like the fact that we had some questions at the end that shows the engagement. Love it. Thank you all for participating in the Market Post Minicon Open Source AI. We're organizing the next one on agentic AI. It'll be May 21st. The signups will be available pretty soon. We look forward. Thank you, Darren. We look forward to having you join that one as well.